So I apologize if the setup over here makes anybody think about something like a political debate is going to take place. I know 'tis the season, but really I'm no better equipped to be a debate moderator in the political season than anything. Than I am to run a data center, for that matter. Thank you all for coming. And really thanks to Bruce and the whole team for inviting us here to talk about Watson. I just want to do a quick kind of show of hands. Who in the audience has, sounds like a silly question, but who has heard of Watson, IBM Watson? Okay, who knows what Watson has done besides play Jeopardy? Okay, so I think what's really interesting is that about 5 years ago, we really introduced the world to this idea of cognitive computing and the idea that we could actually build systems that would begin to achieve some of the promise that we've been reading about and hearing about in artificial intelligence and cognitive computing for all these years. And what better way to do it than through pop culture? So we did create the system that was going to go out and compete at the game of Jeopardy. What's really interesting about that game is that in order to make any progress, in order to really compete with the best of the best, you have to do something that computers have historically been pretty bad at doing. You have to understand natural language. Computers have been good at calculating, computers have been good at storing, computers have been good at searching, but computers have not been very good at understanding people. And it turns out that natural language is just one form of really unstructured information and one form of the way that computers and human beings are going to be collaborating in the future. We've already seen the proliferation of popular devices where we can talk to our computers today more than we ever have before. Computers can listen to us, they can understand the tone in our voice, they can understand the emotion in what we're saying now, they can understand pictures now, and really the whole idea of cognitive computing is to create systems that can interact with us much more naturally, be a much more natural interface to tremendous quantities of data, like the era of the zettabyte that is coming, and do so in a way that it's going to really help us do what we do better. It's always a partnership between a human being and a professional. And we've seen this in many, many industries. And the reason this is becoming much, much, much more important is because we are living in the era of data. It's an information revolution. I'm sure if you look in your data centers that each of you run and you think about the quantity of data that you have to manage and store today, it is significantly different than what it was 5 years ago, probably even significant than more, significantly larger than what you thought it was going to be when you were doing your forecasting 5 years ago. A lot of that data is coming from health. A lot of that data is what we call exogenous data, wearable devices and the like, unstructured information, user-generated content, videos, pictures, blogs, reviews, social media certainly, and across all industries, manufacturing, utilities, life sciences, health. We're seeing massive, massive growth in the quantity of data, with the vast majority of that being data that's unstructured, by which we mean data that doesn't fit neatly into the rows and columns of a spreadsheet or a database, data for which SQL searches are simply completely unimaginable or unreasonable to structure, audio data, visual data, as I've said. So it's really a massive, massive transformation. And until now, it's been very, very difficult to get a handle on what that data is, what it means, and what you can go ahead and do with it as an enterprise. So IBM invented this idea of cognitive computing, which really has several key characteristics. It's systems that learn over time, systems that understand natural language, systems that interact with us in a much more natural way and understand not just the words that we speak, but also in many ways the intuition behind those words, the implication of those words, the tone, the emotion, and they provide a level of scaling of human expertise in a way that we've never seen. And it's one thing for me to talk about it, but it's quite another thing for us to have some people that have been doing this. And really, we've been doing this across dozens of industries for the past 2.5 years. We launched the Watson ecosystem about 2.5 years ago, which gave us the opportunity to create a platform. And on that platform, we've invited companies to come and build products and services on top of the key Watson capabilities. Natural language, question-answer, retrieval services, understanding, as I've said, speech and text and tone and vision, and all of these characteristics are now available as APIs on the Watson Developer Cloud platform, and companies in all of these different industries and many, many more have come and have been building solutions. So there is no better way to talk about what Watson can do than to invite not quite this many partners. Let's go with this many partners instead. So joining me on the panel today, I'd like to invite Stuart Gillen, the Director of Business Development from SparkCognition, Brian Hurley, the President and CEO of Purple Forge, David Tan, the Chief Technology Officer and co-founder of CrushBank, as well as Marc Dispensa, the founder and CTO of Equals 3 Media. Would you guys come and join me? Not for debate, I promise. Nobody else wanted to take the lead, I see. It's a little tight up here. So does anybody want to declare that they're going to play the role of Hillary Clinton up here? We're going to pass on that. Okay, so why don't we just go right down the line? You can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what your company does.
Sure. So Marc Dispensa, founder and CTO of Equals 3. Equals 3 is a company focused on building cognitive solutions for marketers. Specifically, we've developed a product called Lucy, which is designed to be a brand marketer's best friend, as we call it. Really, it's a platform to search and mine all of the content that would exist within the marketing spectrum of a Fortune 500 or a large agency.
Fantastic.
And I'm Stuart Gillen, Director at SparkCognition. And basically what we do is we use advanced machine learning and data analytics cognitive approach to be able to monitor the reliability, safety, and security of the industrial internet. One of our products, SparkSecure, powered by IBM Watson, with that particular technology, we're looking for cybersecurity threats, not just malware detection, bot detection, antivirus, etc., but really combining with our products all of those technologies, all of those tools to be able to give in-context information and remediation. As an example, we then use reasoning, things like natural language processing, IBM Watson, to be able to give cybersecurity professionals in-context information at the perimeter. So as an example with IBM Watson, you can basically give a question within the environment and get the answer to whatever reasoning or whatever threat you might be facing within the security environment.
Excellent, thanks.
Thanks. David Tan, Chief Technology Officer, co-founder of CrushBank. We built an application on IBM Watson to enable the IT support help desk. Essentially, it's a system for IT support engineers to be able to quickly and efficiently find answers to complex technical questions. It's a real challenging space from the end user support aspect. There's a lot of information that they need to know. There's a lot of different versions, a lot of different applications. And the dirty little secret of that field is that most people spend their entire day Googling for answers. Well, we figured there had to be a better way. So that's when we found IBM, started using Watson to build an application that does get those answers to them quickly and easily.
Terrific.
Hi, I'm Brian Hurley, President and CEO of Purple Forge. We're focused on community engagement and self-service solutions, basically letting people get answers to their questions and access to services. And we're focused on three main challenges. We're focused on helping reduce service delivery costs by keeping this sort of capability in the digital channel, by improving customer experience, by removing the technology barriers so that people, in terms of people, how people get access to information and services. And actually, through people's using our service, they'll provide some deep insights into unmet needs for in turn relative to the customer, so that our customers and users of our services can be able to make priorities and decisions based on what the real needs are of their customers based on interaction with our service. And we typically sell about 40% of our business to governments, so like Miami-Dade, Denver, and those the likes of those in Pittsburgh. Thank you, Steve.
Excellent. So we've got media, security, help desk support, and public sector. That's a nice kind of cross-section. So let's start with you, Marc. Tell me a little bit about what makes your solution different and how it is that Watson helps marketers really get access to and interact with the data that they need to get their jobs done.
Sure. So if you think about a marketer's world right now, typically think of a P&G or a big organization. Each brand has insights, studies that they're building, data that they're looking for as they go into a new market. Right now, up until now, marketers historically have done new research studies, gone back out to the market. Maybe they'll have a study that was done a year or two ago that's similar in the space. Now imagine if you were able to get all of the content that was ever done across the organization for the past 20, 30 years. All of the structured data, unstructured data. Put that in one place. With Watson, what we're able to do is we're able to take structured and unstructured data, bring all of that into one system, and allow the user to be able to mine and find all that content. So if you're a brand marketer going out and looking for a new product in the market, will this work? Will it test? Right now, you may spend tens of millions of dollars on just trying to figure that out. And who's my audience? How are they going to buy this? How are they going to use it? With Watson, we can take all of that content and information and search it. We're at the point now where we're able to build out proof of concepts with clients within 3 months. Before this, as in my previous life as a CTO at media brands, we were spending anywhere from a year to 2 years trying to just get the content into a core index.
Right, so by content, there's a lot of data about media spend, a lot of data about demographic information, and your customers can ask questions of that data, right? They can get visualizations. Give me an example of the question a marketer might ask.
So if you're a marketer, think about how much did my Unilever, so if you're Procter & Gamble, how much did Unilever spend in this category? That might be one simple question. Well, you might go a step further. How much did they spend within this product, within this market for this particular segment? And those are data questions. They may then go and say, well, what case studies were done on this? And being able to take all those different disparate questions across every one of those data sets, and as a user, you're able to just go in and hit every data source immediately and bring that information back into the system.
Excellent. Yeah, so I like that you kind of laid out a little bit of the workflow. So just so we don't always go in the same order, let's go to the other end. And Brian, speaking of workflow, right? So you're going to be helping, your solutions will be helping sort of public sector employees get information, intelligent communities, that sort of thing. What's the workflow look like with your solution with Watson in the loop as compared to without?
Well, it actually does two things. On one level, if you think of things like Salesforce, it basically made CRM accessible to a whole different domain of people that wasn't available to before. And really, when we introduce capabilities like Watson into our service, we make it available to agencies that previously couldn't even afford it. So first of all, give them access to services that were unattainable in their budget. We also provide the option for larger organizations to increase the scope of the services they offer to go 24/7 and then have on-call staff as opposed to having dedicated staff. So it goes both ways. Provide some capabilities they didn't have before, as well as augment existing capabilities to allow them to increase the scope of what they're providing.
So you're making the employee much more efficient and effective in their job, therefore lowering the cost of providing those services.
Absolutely, and as a consequence of this, in the case of the government clients, the citizens, people like us, are actually getting much more rapid access to our information and services anytime, anywhere, which was previously a very labor-intensive activity on the part of the government agencies.
Excellent. So speaking of rapid access to getting questions answered, so looking at trouble tickets, looking at maintenance requests and things like that, tell me how Watson is helping your clients.
Sure. So it's interesting, at a conference like this, you talk a lot about future technologies and things that are happening in the industry. But at the end of the day, today we still are people dealing with computers, and we have problems, and we need to get those problems answered. And the person at the other end of the line, it's a challenging job for them to perform. They need to have not only technical understanding and comprehension, but they also need to have customer service skills. So what we're able to do is by training Watson on all these different technologies, different versions, different platforms, different iterations, they can get quick answers to the questions that are coming in, whether it's something simple like how do I reset a password, or how do I open a port or an ACL in a Cisco firewall. It's one engineer that needs to know all those answers, and that's real difficult for that one person to have all that understanding. But then the second piece of it is being able to get the intent of the question and understanding, hey, this person's upset, so I need to deal with them first, or this person's real angry or real frustrated. Using some of the other advanced APIs of Watson, we can give that customer service touch that normally these typical help desk engineers, it's not really their specialty. And by the same token, the information going back out. So, hey, maybe we look at the notes that someone's putting in a ticket or the notes that go into a chat session, and then we can train the engineer on, you gave a good answer and that was wonderful, but you really shouldn't talk to a customer that way. You shouldn't talk to an end user that way. You should consider using language like this. So it becomes a good training opportunity as well.
I'd say there's really two different things. One is kind of getting all of those textbooks and publications that have, best practices and troubleshooting techniques for all the different products that your clients have to deal with, getting those loaded into Watson so that Watson can then answer those questions and find the right document in response to that. But also understanding, you were saying, the tone and kind of the emotion based on
the intent, exactly.
Yeah, based on the the analysis that Watson can do.
Yeah, I mean, listen, a lot of times we have to triage issues based on how angry the end user is or how urgent it is, and that stuff that's hard to get out of reading an email, but Watson helps us do that.
Excellent. So speaking of now, I guess we're moving on to security a little bit. Tell me again what the workflow of an employee would be who's using the solution as contrast with somebody who's not.
Yeah, so I think if we start with where people are at today, right, within a data center with a cybersecurity professional, they're getting millions to tens of millions of log files, threat detections, etc. every single day. So that's one guy that has to basically quickly triage, I like that word, be able to rank that threat, and then be able to do something with it. And what we're seeing is what do you do with it is really where Watson can help out. So I think Marc had mentioned, and I think all of us have done this, or most of us, you get some pop-up on your computer that you've got malware or some virus, and what's the first thing we do? We go out to Google or Bing, we type in a question, we spend half an hour in chat rooms trying to figure out what the best solution is before we eventually have to pick up and call the IT guy. We try to do it on our own. And so, that little interaction might take 30 minutes, might take an hour just to do that. But with the solution that we've come up with IBM Watson, we've trained Watson on the National Vulnerability Database, on the CSE repository, many manuals, etc. And now imagine a paradigm shift where we're looking at multiple different threats. I mentioned malware, bot detection, etc. And the threat happens. So the first thing we can do is rank that. We can give the cyber professional an idea of how important that particular threat might be. But then we take it a step farther, and that's really where the power of Watson comes, is we can provide in-context remediation to the cybersecurity professional. So they don't have to go to Bing, they don't have to go to Google. We've trained on these manuals, these databases, etc. And from within the environment, they're basically able to get the answer to the question. So in many of these data centers, there's lots of silos of different tools, right? And so what we're trying to do is bring together sort of one overarching tool, integrated with existing tools, but then the security professional, because context switching is huge, right? And if they have to go to a whole bunch of different tools, they're not exactly sure which tool to use, that can be a severe drain on time and efficiency. So within this one tool, they're able to get all those solutions. And what we've seen is, by providing that in-context remediation through Watson, we've seen that go from some customers from 9 hours to 9 minutes. So that's a huge, huge improvement in being able to do these things in line as the threats are happening.
And that's a combination of things, right? One, it's curating the corpus, that you have the right information available to those professionals, understanding those questions, getting to those answers much more quickly and efficiently, and the approved answers, not just the Google answers.
Right? Ranked answers. And the nice thing about machine learning then is when you get those ranked answers, as the user, think of it like Facebook. You can essentially, within the product, give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And the product, through Watson and our technologies, it learns that way. So the next time somebody might experience that, another customer or even yourself, because we've trained on what are the right, best answers, those naturally will surface to the top of the list.
Excellent. You guys can also ask questions of each other, by the way, so it's not just playing 4-on-1 tennis here. But I like the way we've got kind of not just different industries, but really different applications. One, obviously answering questions is a common theme, but we're looking at different ways of analyzing the questions, different repositories of data, whether it's structured or unstructured, being able to pull different things out of those questions to know more about what's being asked, whether it's which data set is the right data set, or which analysis is the right analysis, or which customer is the angriest customer. To really kind of pull these pieces apart. Yeah.
I've got a little story I can share.
Please.
So when we're demoing, I guess all you guys do demos, and sometimes the anxiety that comes with demos. We're doing a demonstration to a government customer, and We're showing them how to use the question and answer technology for citizens. You know, showing them the typical things that people might ask, like where was my car towed and how much does a dog license cost? And then the CIO was there with his team. He says, well, can I ask you a question? And of course, you know, that's off script in the demo, so that's always, you know, bad things always happen when this happens. So he said, well, I want to ask it, you know, how many chickens can I own? And I go, oh, geez, what's it going to say? And of course, it actually surprised us as well as his team. I came back and said he owned 50 poultry in the city of Surrey. So I think it's kind of interesting when you talk about the Q&A, when you talk about it in abstract terms, but in reality, when you use this type of technology, it lets you get asked, you know, it lets you do things you never thought were possible. And it's, you know, you got to get those magical moments. And so that's kind of an example of where this technology can get us in a very practical concept. So.
And that is the best example of the famous chicken and egg problem that I've ever heard presented on any panel anywhere. But does anybody have a comment or question about an egg, just to round it out? Or maybe the seed of a better idea we should go with. So I know that there's some interesting crossplay, like several of you were thinking about, you know, kind of ticket closure rates. So maybe we can start with David. You know, do you have any metrics or anything on sort of, you know, the closure rates? We heard 9 days or 9 hours to 9 minutes in one case, but in terms of, you know, end to end, you know, I think a lot of folks in this room might be interested in that kind of real performance metrics for yourself.
Absolutely. So the two metrics we pay the most attention are first call resolution and time to resolution. So the way we think about it is, if you're not resolving on the first call, if you need to escalate, if you need to get someone else involved, that costs you money. So that's a cost savings, that's low-hanging fruit. So we've seen about a 40% reduction in increase in first call resolution. So these are the level 1 engineers being able to solve problems that they have not been able to solve previously without getting a higher price, more expensive resource involved. The second piece is time.
So that's both a happier customer and a less expensive.
Right, exactly. So that's a faster resolution, better job satisfaction, better customer satisfaction. The other side of the same coin is time to resolution. So whether it's the first call engineer or there needs to get escalated or whatever the case may be, just the time to resolution, we've seen that drop by about 30% in the same testing. So basically, whether they need to get someone else involved or they know the answer, or just being able to find the answer and pull it out of content. So, you know, something similar to what the example Brian had said, when we go and do demos, we like to do a head-to-head against Google. So a simple Google question, you'll ask, and it'll come back with 9 million results. And it's all trial and error. And of course, for my demos, I have a bunch of questions that seem pretty simple, but the entire first page of Google results is wrong. So that's always fun to take someone down the journey of, oh, here's my answer, here's my question, this looks like the right answer. What trouble is this going to get me into? Whereas when I put the same question to CrushBank, get a ranked answer with high degree of confidence, we know we're getting the right answer right away, increasing those customer sat numbers.
And Brian, did you have any metrics where you look at when you look at resolution times, or?
Well, we've been looking mainly at you know, the degree to which people get answers to their questions. So we actually have a live pilot with City of Surrey, which you're all welcome to download from the app stores. And in the case where people are asking questions, we typically 90% of the questions get answers back, of which the 10% that aren't answers are because people are asking questions that have nothing to do with the City of Surrey. Partly it's because I think people think Watson knows everything, but the reality is it only knows what you tell it. And of the 90% of the questions that get answers, we get about 9-10% where they say it didn't really answer my question. So, and then of that, in terms of the city workflow, they usually would flow over to a service request, and less than 5% of those questions end up translating to service requests. So far our experience has been very positive in terms of people appear to be getting the answers to their questions that they're looking for using the system.
That's cool. That's actually really, I mean, especially what I love about your solution. This is impacting people's daily lives, you know, because it's really services that they may need, you know, from their municipalities or from government agencies.
Yeah, absolutely. And it represents an opportunity for the governments to provide better services. It represents the opportunity for us as taxpayers to see better use of our tax dollars. And of course, this use case applies to a wide range of other markets, as the others on our panel are talking about as well. And I like your particular thing about Google. We do the same thing. It's interesting because how we find and discover information hasn't fundamentally changed in a decade, right? It's still keyword searches, it's navigating menus, and with the increasing amount of information that Steve talks about, that is a big challenge, and it will be an increasing challenge. And I've got a quote if I can share it with you. So one of our customers, when he got into it with the Watson technology, I'll read it just to make sure I get them accurate. This is the director of IT for City of Surrey, who we've been working with for about 8 months now. He says, working with Purple Forge and IBM on my Surrey has made me fundamentally rethink how we do information discovery and navigation for government services. And that's because when you look at these technologies, stuff that you thought you had to do a particular way, there's a whole new avenue available to you. And when we looked at it, we found that very interesting because of the fact it's going to transform our industry in so many different ways. So.
It's a fantastic point. Again, I really love to see this technology impacting people in their lives and sort of public sector municipalities. I mean, advertising is great, but this is... and the common theme seems to be some attention paid to curating that corpus, making sure that you get the right information in, coupled with the right amount of training, making sure that there's somebody who's actually helping Watson understand what are good answers, what are bad answers. And when you put those two things together, you get a much higher response rate, much higher accuracy and recall rates than if you're simply using keyword search. There's a lot of signal in that question that Watson can pick up on to match against signal that it finds in the documents. So now for something completely different, Marc, talking about, again, in the media space. I'm not sure what you have for metrics, for how you measure the efficiency or the effectiveness of Watson. But can you,
Sure. So one of the things we have right now is we looked at, so from an efficiency perspective, you think about the time it takes to bring a campaign to market or a new idea. Typically, what we found was from the time that a company decides that they're going to engage on an activity that is going to end up in a campaign, it takes anywhere from 2 to 3 months to get the activities created, get all the messages done, test them, and get it to market. What we found, and ultimately develop a media plan. With Lucy, we've been able to cut that time down from 3 months to anywhere from a week to 2 weeks. And really the last week is around design and creating the campaign information. So we've been able to take that cycle down upwards of 60%, 70%. Our hope is to get it down to 90% when you get to messages that are typically social or advertisements that are digital. So your TVs and your radio and your print ads will still continue to take a little bit longer as they naturally have longer cycles. But if you think about digital ads and how dynamic they're becoming, we're hoping to get that cycle down to upwards of 90%.
So what I love about this is, if you think about, closing out tickets or responding to security threats, you think about cost takeout. You think about improving the efficiency to resolve some kind of a problem. And as much as I was giving advertising a hard time a minute ago, it's really more about the decision support for a proactive activity that's going to go and generate new business, new revenue. So it's not just about efficiency and cost takeout. It's also about kind of intelligence, decision support, and planning, which is really cool. Let's see, so does anybody have any thoughts, open questions to start with, on where they'd like to go or where they'd like to see their product go with Watson in the future? This is all kind of version 1 stuff. You guys are all early partners. So where do you see this going?
Well, I mean, I see things are changing dramatically. I mean, one of the things I see today when we look at what's considered an application, it's on a device and it's talking to some cloud services. I think fundamentally, we have these connected devices, around us, digital displays and access devices now, and the nature of an application is going to change such that what is an application is going to depend on who you are, where you are, and what devices around you have access to, and the nature will change. And I believe that fundamentally the way we're going to interact with these services is going to be the way we talk with each other. And that's going to involve the element of extracting information from data to give an answer, and also activating functions for these devices. So I think that that's where it's going, and I think the Watson technology is fundamental and core to allowing that to happen because of the fact, well, today it's natural language and getting answers. We've enhanced it to do some function activation in the context of cities, and I believe that there's certainly the potential to bring it far beyond where it's at today. So that's where I think it's going. It's more than just what we're talking about, asking questions and getting answers. It's much more than that. It's going to change the way we interact with our environment and services.
Yeah, the way I like to think about that is as we get into the Internet of Things, or as I guess we said earlier, the Internet of Everything, lots of sources of data, lots of new signals that are coming in, some of which we understand, some of which we don't understand, some of which we can correlate, some of which we can't correlate. And if you can imagine, a system with the capabilities that we've been describing here, talking about Watson, really being able to not just answer questions, but help make predictive statements and help me do, intelligence and planning on where my business or my technology or my products ought to go based on the sensor data that's all around us and the direction that should take us. I think that's really exciting.
I think that talks a little bit to what we see as the future for our product. I mean, we've always talked about the self-healing network and being able to solve problems before they exist. But I think it's a realistic possibility now with the power and the intelligence of a Watson platform. You can really monitor the millions and millions of alarms and alerts and logs and bells and whistles that come out of your systems. And through real machine learning, you can see these problems before they affect your end users and solve them in advance. And I think that's just a quantum leap from what we're doing today, from what anyone's doing today.
Yeah, and I would just, I would just add on to that. I think it's going to move from, I think today we're still at the augmentation stage. Mm-hmm. It's going to move to the automation stage where you still need the human involved at some level, but it's going to be much, much less time. And again, they're going to move from just getting the answer and implementing whatever they need to implement to the system automatically doing that for them. Mm-hmm. And we're very close to that, being able to do that today.
Yeah, so much more moving from a reactive place to
a proactive. Exactly, and predictive.
Proactive and predictive, yeah.
So you may not even get to that stage anymore because months and months in advance you're seeing trends that are predicting that a failure or a threat's going to happen before it actually does.
I'm thinking about the media space. I guess the same thing, going from reactive to proactive. You can take people's temperature on social media today and really kind of get a sense of what people are thinking or feeling without running a campaign and measuring response.
Yeah, and I would go, one of the tenets when we founded the company was equals 3 is 1 plus the system equals 3. So the whole idea of you plus the system leverages that. Ultimately, we're trying.
I don't think I ever knew that.
You did?
We've been working together for like a year and a half.
Part of the marketing pitch. But I'd say really what it comes down to is imagine if our ultimate end state is the ability for a marketer to come up with a pro message. What is the intent that you're trying to get a person to do or the action you're trying to get them to take? And through Cognitive, we can take that message and apply it to a multitude of audiences automatically. So the message, not just getting the ad that'll show up for the right person at the right place, but the right place at the right time with the right message to get that person to take action. And that Watson allows us to do that.
Yeah, so you're using one of the services that I don't think anybody else on the panel is using. You're using our personality insight service. Mm-hmm. You want to talk a little bit about what that does for, what it does, but also what it does for you and your customers.
So what we're able to do is actually understand, we're able to take in social content, go out and find individuals. So within the system, we search for those people who meet a certain set of attributes. When we find them, we go in and we look at them and we go back a certain amount of posts. So we can use Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, things that they've just written. And we can actually mine that information to look for signals in their data. What type of person is this? Are they open? Are they conscientious? And we can use those personality insights and attributes to really understand the person and then use that information to help either market to them or help drive to what the audiences are. So it helps a marketer from their perspective understand what is that individual, what type of group do they fit in. So typically right now, you're either a male 18 to 49 with a certain amount of income, but really you might be a person who's interested in going skydiving or have an open set of personality profiles. That information goes a long way, and Watson is one of the only technologies that we can do that with. And to go a step further, there's also a tone analyzer piece where we can understand not just the signals of a person, but the tone. I think there are some other companies that are using that tone piece. But think about how much power you can have as a marketer to understand your audiences in a whole new way.
Yeah, it's worth maybe double-clicking a little bit. This personality insight service is based on something called psycholinguistic analysis. So the theory is that if you can give me between 3,000 and 4,000 words that you've written, so maybe a page or two, maybe a couple of blog posts, maybe a couple of hundred tweets, maybe access to your Facebook page. If you give me those, maybe 3,500 words that you've written, Watson can produce an analysis of your personality along 52 different characteristics, and it can understand things like not just what you're interested in, that you can do from kind of keyword extraction on the topics that you discussed, but really what motivates and drives you. Are you open to new experiences and interested in being excited? Are you much more of a conservative personalities, not politics? Are you driven by a need to altruistically help others, or are you much more egocentric, driven to a need to promote yourself? And these things that make us kind of who we are show up in the words that we choose when we communicate, and Watson can extract that signal. You can imagine the power of that, not just for a marketer to put the right message, describe the car in terms that will resonate with you. You're interested in excitement, we'll tell you about 0 to 60 and the wind through your hair, the wind through your head with the top down, as opposed to somebody else who's much more kind of conservative or interested in safety and those kinds of things. We'll tell them 5-star safety rating and all these airbags versus somebody else who really is selfless and wants to save the planet. Talk to them about how economical the car is and its carbon footprint and its green technology in the engine. Same car, different messages based on what Watson was able to. So there's all those personality characteristics, but picture that in a data center. Now you get somebody on the phone, you're looking at their email, you're looking at their text reports, and now you understand something about maybe how to better respond to them and better handle them as a human being. I think it's really cool. I think we're kind of scratching the surface of what that capability can do. But to me, it's an example of how we're going really beyond question answering and giving Watson certainly more senses, like I said before, the sense of sight, the sense of sound, but giving Watson, not to personify it too much, think about empathy, the ability to understand who you're communicating with, and then shape your message as you go back. I think we're running maybe down the last 5 minutes here, so maybe real quick, I'm going to ask each of you 2 things, so you can think about the one while you do the other. So first, how do your customers react when you tell them that you're working with Watson? So what's the value of the fact that you're working with Watson to your customers?
Sure. For us, it's huge. I think knowing that we're working with IBM sets the bar pretty high. But with Watson, one of the interesting things is that everybody gets this idea of it's a person, it's a thing. They go really far right. But the really cool part is that with that context and with the thinking that's grounded in that Watson is a person, we're able to take that and start to set the tone of we're building out platforms that let you engage, that let you talk. So going in with IBM and the power of Watson we get to leverage IBM in a certain multitude of ways. But most importantly, we set the context of how we're going to work with them. And they have an idea that Watson is like a person. It allows us to think and to work with them.
Excellent.
Well, first of all, I would say is customers love it because when we first introduced them to it, they all believe they're going to be recording superstars like Bob Dylan. So immediately they want to get involved and they understand that. But as you go deeper, it's just been tremendously valuable again because we can show them how they can save their time and money by being able to interact with the product in a natural way, in a way that a human wants to think about how to interact with a piece of software. It's not point and click, it's just give me a question and I'll be able to provide you that answer. And so once we start showing them how quickly we can save them time within their data centers, et cetera, they really get on board and love it.
Cool. Dave?
I think for us it's all about credibility. Look, the idea of an intelligent help desk support tool and using artificial intelligence, it's not exactly revolutionary. But when we partner with someone like IBM, we could say, hey, this is a big company, they've invested billions of dollars behind it. We can take them through the journey, pre-Jeopardy all the way up through today, and talk about how the technology has evolved. I love talking not only about the Q&A piece that we're working with, but the 30 other APIs that we're starting to leverage. So I think that just gives us the instant credibility to have the conversation so that customers do understand that this is a real solution built on a rock-solid platform.
That's it. Right.
Everything they said. And, I would say that it goes back to what the Syria director of IT said, right? It made them fundamentally rethink how we delivered information and services. It basically opened up a new panorama of possibilities that were previously closed. And I think in all the cases where we're doing the pilots and deployments, that's the real thing. It's got them thinking about what they could do that they couldn't do before to save money, to deliver better services, and to get deeper insights.
Yeah, so I think what's interesting to me is that there was a theme, which is that when you first talk to your customers, there's the hype, there's the Watson, there's the TV commercial, there's the Jeopardy star, there's the giant Watson in the sky that knows everything. But very quickly, that gets you in the door. The conversation turns into, no, really, what can we do for you? How can we change, and how can we be concrete and get past the hype? All right, so let's see, I think we still have a couple minutes. No, we do not have a couple minutes. So in that case, I have one last question for the audience. You've seen a few examples of a couple of our partners, folks we've been working with for years, in the early stages. But this is really ready for prime time. And in fact, the services that we described here, whether it's understanding the intent of a question, finding the answer in a large corpus, understanding the tone or the emotion, understanding the personality, plus the ones that we sort of alluded to, speech, vision, and many more that are coming. They're all available right now on the IBM Bluemix platform, which is our platform as a service offering. So I think the only question that you should all go home and ask yourselves is, what will you do with Watson? So thank you.
So
Thank
can we
you,
take
Joe,
just a
and thank
minute,
you, our
Steve,
students.
can we stay just a minute and see if people have questions? Anyone have something burning to ask? Way up back, you're going to have to speak up loud.
What will the world be like when Watson runs for political office?
No worse than the world we live in today.
So Steve, I have a question. I'm sorry to make you turn around.
Sure.
You don't have to turn around. We've heard the 4 use cases. Tell us a little bit about the business model. How does Watson work with them as ecosystem members?
So that's interesting. Yeah, the Watson technology is actually available in a number of kind of vehicles. When IBM launched the business unit about 2.5 years ago, we recognized a couple of things. One is that, IBM being who we are, we have the same, 50 to 100 to 300 of the top, Fortune 500 companies in the world that we're going to work with. We're going to do large transformative engagements. We're going to send our services people to, train and configure Watson and customize it. And that's going to be a core part of our Watson business, just like it's a core part of our database business and our middleware business. So of course we're going to do that. But one of the things that we also decided when we launched the business unit is that we have to make Watson available to a type of company that performs a type of function that normally wouldn't be able to do a business with IBM. So that's what the purpose of the Watson ecosystem was, to create a platform, to create a business model, and to create a mode of interaction that makes it easier for companies like these and many others, largely software companies, independent software vendors, to get access to the Watson technology. And that has both a business model component to it, as well as a technology component. So we have a self-service platform now, which makes it easier for people to get started and get trials. And we now have, we've now sort of, over the past 2.5 years, experimented, as any good startup would experiment, with a number of different business models. And we've really focused in on a subscription model for the access to the core capabilities. Tiered subscription model, different kind of views within that, but it's all consumption based. So depending on how much Watson you're going to use is going to govern how much you're going to pay. So it's sort of standard for an API business to run off of a consumption based model. One of the things that I like about working with these customers in particular is that there's, as this subscription model becomes sort of the centerpiece, there's a tier of that subscription model that includes a really close technical partnership with the members of the Watson ecosystem, a technical team. And that's really the kind of the direction that we're taking this. But it's been a great ride for the past 2.5 years to get to work with hundreds of companies that really would have never been able to experience IBM and that we would have never experienced. I think we've learned more from the partners than the partners have learned from us. So it's been really, really fun for me. And I hope for them.
Thank you very much. If nothing else, anybody got one more question?
I have one.
Or, go ahead.
Just curious, for the whole panel, if you could quickly respond. In months, what was your ramp cycle to get to your base level of operational maturity?
What was that? Sorry?
The ramp cycle in months to get to base level of maturity operation.
Sure, I'll start. So we're actually in production now, and it was a year, basically, from start to finish. We've given estimates that say if we didn't have Watson technology, it would have been 3 years.
We're also in production, I would say, from actually training on the Watson technology. It was in the matter of 1 to 2 months, and then building the products on top of that was probably in the 9 to 12 month arena as well.
Our biggest challenge was around procuring content. So if I take that out of the equation, it was probably 4 to 6 months building, training, and getting to market. But again, if you're working with commercial content, which we were, that was a little bit of a challenge. A lot of vendors don't necessarily understand this business model or this space.
And for us, it was about 12 months as well. A lot of it was understanding the technology, integrating it in with our system, and then working with the customers during the pilots to make sure we have the use case and the operational flows for sustaining it in place. Yes, about 12 months ago, right?
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah, I think part of what you're seeing in the answer, and thank you all for answering that, is the evolution and maturity of the Watson platform. So we're 5 years plus since Jeopardy. We're 2.5 years in since the launch of the business unit. And we've really gotten to the point where the technology is much closer to a self-service model. Some of the services, literally, if you're a developer, we run hackathons in 2 days. 100 developers in a room with 3 or 4 technical experts. People have an MVP that's running a demo that's actually leveraging Watson services before they get out the door. So really focusing on those developers and developer efficiency. In fact, if you keep your eyes open to the Watson space, a lot of announcements coming out over the next, say, 3-ish months aimed at efficiency and effectiveness of developers in developing out these use cases as well as many others. So that's really where we're laser focused as an organization, is how to make it possible for people to go from 0 to 60 with Watson in much less time.
Thank you very much. This has been a great presentation. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and your generosity. Steve, this was terrific.
Thanks for having us. And thank you guys. Appreciate it.